Hey there, Tony Litster with CureTheCraving.com. Back at you again with some straight talk. Today I want to talk about the process of change in the brain. Now, I spent 15 years of my life studying personal development. I love understanding what makes people tick and what it is it takes to get us to actually create change in our life. And my interest in this really came from the fact that I was pretty dissatisfied in my life. And I wanted to change things, and I kept running into my own patterns. And it almost seemed like no matter how hard I would try, I couldn't get out of my own belief systems, my own junk, my own patterns that were holding me back. So I began to study this process of what happens in our brain and what creates change. And I had the opportunity to meet with a gentleman who was a brain scientist, had studied the brain for years and years and years. And I asked him, how long does it take to create actual physical change in the brain? How long before a mental change becomes a biological change, like physical cell structure change? And this is what he told me. It was fascinating. He said change in the brain happens in the emotions, not in the intellect. Because when we feel, it's a chemical reaction in our brain, and it's literally, our brain has billions of neurons in it. And when we think or when we feel something, this electricity passes between those neurons. And if we think the same thought process enough times, it develops what's called a neural pathway in our brain. And so as we feel a certain emotion, it's sort of like laying down layers of asphalt on a highway. It's a process called myelination in the brain, and it lays down this layer of myelin, is what they call it. Or at least that's what the brain scientist told me it was called. So, but it lays down this layer. So we feel a certain emotion, and it fires all those different neurons that equal that emotion in our body, and it lays down a layer of myelin. And this process of myelination causes it so it becomes much easier for us to feel that emotion the next time around. And then eventually, over time, these ways of thinking and ways of feeling become our automatic response. So it goes from being a neural pathway to becoming essentially the primary neural pathway in our brain. It's the way that we automatically think and feel. And we become habit-driven creatures. And so what he told me was, he said, change has to happen in the emotions, not just the intellect. And so the key to change is to feel the new thing that we want to experience every day for about 30 days. And if we feel this, we feel the feeling that we want to have every day for about 30 days, then it will create a new neural pathway in our brain. So it takes about 30 days to create that initial neural pathway. And if we continue to reinforce this feeling over about 90 days, it will become the primary neural pathway, or who we are on a cellular level. And I thought that was really cool. Only one challenge with that, and maybe you've thought about this as you watch this video. You've probably been feeling that compulsive pattern of thinking about something sexual and then acting out compulsively, feeling those intense feelings in your body and your brain over and over and over for probably more than 30 days, and my guess is more than 90 days. The challenge with that is that on a cellular level, this addiction has become who you are. And that for you to just be able to say, okay, I'm quitting, I'm done, your brain is going to revolt against that change. It's no different than someone trying to quit smoking. The brain becomes accustomed to those chemicals, and it learns to cope with life through those chemicals. And if you go and take those chemicals away, the brain goes, whoa, where's our old stuff? We need our stuff back. And it creates all kinds of cravings and depression and insomnia and anxiety and fear and you know, the urge for a release and pressure, all these different things. The brain says, we want those chemicals back. Bring it back to normal. Bring it back to what you've wired us to be. And so change in this process takes time. And it takes reinforcing that place that you want to get to over and over and over until eventually you develop new neural pathways. Now, there's two ways to create change in the brain. Well, there's probably more than that, but there's two I'm going to talk about. Number one is the process of atrophy. If someone doesn't have use of a certain part of their body, it eventually essentially shrivels up and becomes useless. If we don't use muscles in our body, they go away. If we don't use pathways in our brain, they go away. It's almost like that highway just kind of breaks up if we don't use it on a regular basis. So step one is use that highway less, because it's going to become less prevalent. And then step 2 is to intentionally create a new neural pathway in your brain for the experience that you want to have. And that's done by feeling that feeling that you want to have, intentionally doing it every day for at least 30 days and reinforcing that over a period of at least 90 days. The challenge, and this is why, in my humble opinion, I don't know anyone that has ever gotten over this issue by themselves. It takes us reaching out to others, because as we try to get over this, our brain revolts and puts us into cravings and all those other things. So we need to have people in our life that can support us in this recovery, that can keep reminding us of why we want to make the right choice. And then eventually what happens is that process in the brain, the myelination occurs as we feel these emotions over and over and over. The new emotions that we want, those become the primary neural pathway, and the cravings start to decrease and the good feelings start to come back in our life. We can have higher levels of satisfaction. We can experience joy. We can experience connection with other people. We can experience peace of mind and stillness. And that becomes our way of life, and the addiction doesn't serve us anymore because we don't have to run from those things. Now, one of the processes that I like to take people through is creating a series of affirmations or positive belief statements of the things that we want to reinforce in ourselves. And I'll actually take with my clients, we'll create a recording of their voice speaking these beliefs to themselves, and then we'll mix it with Mozart music, because Mozart music has been shown to stimulate the left and right sides of the brain while we listen to it. And every morning and every night they listen for 15 minutes to this series of beliefs. You're a child of God with infinite worth. You're always taken care of. You're always more than enough. The worth of your soul is great. You now fully accept yourself. Your body is now in perfect balance. You're always healthy and strong. Everything you touch prospers. Other people experience their worth when they're in your presence. And when you hear your voice say this over and over, day after day, you start to rewire those neural pathways. So I encourage you to put tools like this into your life. Get people around you that can support you. Put positive reminders up around you so that you can literally rewire your brain by intentionally experiencing the emotions that you want to feel. And this is how we get over this, by developing new habits and new coping tools. Keep moving forward. Recovery is absolutely possible.